Hi. So I was just thinking all day, frankly, about how much I genuinely love Eddie Kingston. And I weren't really the biggest Eddie fan for the longest time, but he just grew on me so much. That promo style is just phenomenal, and just everything about Eddie Kingston. And like, I think it was the absence that really got me. I think I kind of took Eddie for granted. I'm such a fan. All his old work, specifically, like the stuff with Moxley, the stuff, the Bryan stuff's my favourite, shock. But just everything about Eddie, I'm a massive fan of. And honestly, for the longest time during the modern AEW stuff, like the last year, it's just that Claudio link's not gone away. And if you don't know about the Claudio and Eddie Kingston rivalry, there's a great video on it by Joseph Montecillo, I think his name is, on YouTube. It's phenomenal. It covers their rivalry through Shikara and stuff, and a lot about from Kingston, the face in this rivalry. And with Claudio becoming just like an unstoppable heel and is most likely going to usurp Moxley, Kingston being like the forefront of that rivalry and just kind of reigniting that is something I'm all for. Now, Claudio just beat, I forget the guy's name, the CML World Heavyweight Championship like a week ago. And I think that was like a 3-year plus reign or something. It was a long reign, and Claudio just went over and beat it. And that's a video I wanted to make in a while, but I didn't really have much to say. So I just think that's really cool and interesting that they're giving Claudio this belt, and obviously how that favours the Death Riders stuff. But I feel like if once they do that, I think they're going to have Eddie and Claudio interact for this Death Rider stuff, and that makes sense to me. Of course it does. It's one of the... I really love the Eddie and Claudio just rivalry. I love it. It's one of my favourites. I think Eddie can cut a fantastic promo. I think Claudio's a great heel too. I'm so happy when Claudio's a great heel, and I think this is the best way of Claudio's career. I think that's undeniable. So, just with Eddie and Claudio, just adding the stakes higher and higher. I thought the Grand Slam match a few years ago for the ROH belt was phenomenal. I thought that was a phenomenal way to do Eddie versus Claudio. But throughout this entire time where Eddie's been injured and Claudio's been, with Mox and, the Death Riders and stuff, I've just been waiting for this to, kind of happen. And yeah, it still hasn't happened yet with Eddie and Mox, but Eddie's returns kind of... I didn't think it was handled great. I feel like only now with the upcoming Joe stuff on Dynamite and Hawk finally, leaving Eddie, it's finally starting to move. I feel like they've kind of... I didn't like how they returned Eddie, I'll say that straight away. I feel like they kind of just done it under the rug. They gave him Big Bill as a warm-up match, but there was 0 bills for Big Bill just to call him out, and Eddie just comes out. I still think Eddie should have come out at the end of at some point at Forbidden Door or some point, just because Eddie Kingston, if you like it or not, is a big player for AEW. He's a massive fan favourite. He's representative of an indie crowd that doesn't get a lot of rep anyway. And then also with Eddie, the fans take to Eddie like not a lot of wrestlers can ever do. And his matches are great too when he's on it. That Shibata match I enjoyed recently, last week on the Collision. And I'm looking for... I love the Bryan matches and the Moxley matches, stuff like that. Like, I love all those matches. So for Eddie to just have that back in... I don't want to say it's Punk level, because Punk's a lot more mainstream. But, like, the dedication is Punk level to the extent of... Eddie's a ride or die. Eddie feels like a guy people personally know, and I kind of love that. I love how he portrays himself, and he is the king of the bums. And I don't really want to talk into what I think they'll do with the Joe stuff, because I feel like that's arbitrary. But I really am happy Eddie's back, and I didn't realise how happy I would be until he was out, and I'm glad that I did, because I don't want Eddie Kingston to be a guy we just take for granted until he's gone. Because I think Eddie Kingston's one of the best promo, and I love how he just constantly blares those lines. There's a lot of people that, like, with Eddie's promos and just his work, it's so passionate, it's so real, that it's just, honestly, it's some of the most perfect promos you'll ever see. And the guy's an unapologetic wrestling nerd. The guy just pulls out references of like old like Japanese wrestling out of his ass. Like, I'm blown away by it. I kill to have the Eddie Kingston knowledge and just that encyclopedia in his brain about pro wrestling. That guy's, honestly, regardless of him as a wrestler, him as just a knowledgeable person about wrestling is insane. It's incredibly undervalued, that aspect. The guy's just unapologetically himself. And I think that's what a lot of people love about Eddie Kingston. I love how he's constantly had his life and his past constantly tied into his character. And that sounds dumb, but not a lot of wrestlers can do that the way Eddie does. He makes it really effective and really just you feel it. You feel it. The stuff with I love the Punk promo because it's just so representative of what I think Eddie Kingston is. That entire character of just this guy was always seen as the next big thing, and he didn't turn out like that, but he has no problem with that. But he's offended by people, just how the treatment was back in the past, and Punk straight up calling a bum, and Bryan did too. But Kingston takes it on charge, king of the bums, he takes it on board. And I love that. I think that's just why people get behind Eddie. He's Stone Cold-esque. And I don't mean in the sense of they're not similar characters. I don't think so. No, they've got similar characteristics in the sense of Stone Cold didn't care, and neither does Eddie. Stone Cold wasn't be as emotional and as open as Eddie, but they still get the job done. If you see Eddie, that shot of Eddie with the jelly can is one of the best shots ever. But also, just Eddie like storming out, stuff like that. When Eddie's got that specific look, and you know what look I'm on about, you know something's going to go down. It's like the glass break. Eddie has that reaction, and that's a sign for me of a great wrestler. I'm not saying he's on the level of Stone Cold. He's not. But the impact Eddie can have, he's kind of like AW Stone Cold in the sense of character, not in sense of stature. But Eddie Kingston could easily be that stature. It won't happen. Unfortunately not, it won't. But everything they've pushed Eddie Kingston great in the past, and I hope they do it again, because it could be brilliant yet again. There's not a lot of bigger underdogs in wrestling and a crowd can get behind than Eddie Kingston. There truly isn't. Eddie Kingston's just got that ability. It is like Punk, where Punk just has that ability to get people roped in. Honestly, to this day, I don't know how, and I think it's sort of similar to how Eddie does it, but just in different ways, strands off. And like I say, Eddie Kingston, if you know AEW and you know Eddie Kingston, you'll ridiculously rate him. There's very few people who don't love Eddie Kingston, like who are a fan of AEW. But there's some people out there, and I was one of those people. I'll openly say that, but you miss Eddie Kingston when he's not there. You don't realise how good he is until he's gone. At least I never. And again, I just kind of want to make that apparent. I don't want other people to make the same mistake I did. I love Eddie, and I'm so glad he's back. I'm so glad he's getting this mini main event push. I hope it continues. I'm just, in general, Eddie Kingston can put on some great matches, and I hope we get some too, because that Shibata match, and since Hook has now left Eddie, that's the way to go. Hook and Eddie did not work, and obviously it was a play, but cool. Leave it in the past. Let Eddie be Eddie. And that's what we want. What's your opinion on Eddie Kingston? Is he one of your favourites? What's your actual opinion of him? And what's your favourite Eddie moments? I was gonna say Eddie match, but what's your favourite Eddie moment? Because Eddie's promos are as big for him as his matches are, and that's such a credit to him.